2019-2023 Charter Review Commission meeting. Lindsay, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Summer,
Present?
McDonald,
Present.
Casey,
Here.
Huff,
Here.
Lathram.
Here.
Mr. Allender is absent. DeHart. Here. Frakes.
Here.
Waters.
Here.
Ms. Steele is absent. Boatright.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next on the agenda is approval of the September 7, 2023 minutes.
Motion to approve is in class.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments on that? Any changes needed? All right, all in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are approved. Next, announcements. Lindsay, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we agreed at our last meeting to hold off on our review of 8.7 and 8.8 to the next meeting, the October 5th meeting.
Correct.
Okay, we did go over those, but we were waiting for some more information from city on that. I also wanted to say at this point that we can see the end of the charter from here. I mean, we're getting close. So I'm gonna make a big ask, and that is that we go ahead and, in preparation for the next meeting, review the rest of the charter. And hopefully we can get through those quickly. Don't know how long it'll take, but it'd be nice to have everyone ready to talk about those. Are there any other announcements? Anything from the city? Okay, we'll get started, and we'll start on Article 10. Mr. Walker, was this an article that I asked just for your comments on this?
Yeah, you had sent me a note asking for some additional review on this. I consulted with city staff who would be impacted by this, and specifically to this one, this is not an area or an issue that we're having any challenges or issues with
Okay.
at present or anybody's recent memory.
Okay. Well, when I was looking at it, I did notice that, or at least I didn't think that the model charter and the other cities' charters that we've been looking at have this in their charter.
I didn't see it either.
And so I don't think that's a reason for us necessarily to remove it, but if anyone, is it duplicated in the code in any way?
Most of this, and Jeremy can clean up behind me, most of this is guided by the state constitution and state statutes. So
Okay.
obviously those supersede anything here locally, and most of this is spelled out and dictated in those two governing documents.
Okay. Any thoughts on that?
Well, the only thought I would have is if if our charter is in conflict with state statutes, we're gonna have a heck of a time with it being in our charter and it not being applicable.
If it becomes
Yeah,
a conflict or there's changes in the statute,
right.
right?
Of course, there's a description that includes that in this section.
Well, like I said, I'm not asking that you consider removing it, but I just thought I couldn't look at any other charters in comparison. So,
Yeah, I didn't
and it's
see it.
pretty short. So should we go ahead and go through it with the intent of leaving it in?
Isn't everything that you said 10-8? Isn't that right? 10-8 would say that we would abide by state and without all the other stuff ahead of it. Is that what I'm seeing?
I think there's some things in there that we probably should maintain. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think 10.8 does cover part of what we just spoke about, but I don't know if it's the entire contents of this article.
Okay.
I don't really know.
I think if you're talking about the last line of 10.8, which says, in accordance with federal or state law and regulations, as the case may be, I mean, that only, I think, covers 10.8. 10.8 says nothing in this charter shall prohibit the city from incurring indebtedness to the federal or state government or to any agency thereof, directly or indirectly, and issuing appropriate evidence thereof. So this 10.8, I would say, only covers debt to the federal and state government. It doesn't cover other types of debt that are contemplated by other sections. So I understand what you're saying. I think it certainly, and there could be some similar language if that's what you all want to do to
Just to make 10.
kind of clean this up. If you wanted to, truncate this some, I think that's doable if that's what your intent is.
I just have, why would we have to have it in the charter to lay out everything that we can issue bonds for?
You do not have to have it in the charter.
Yeah, and what's in the,
Right, I mean, I understand it's in there. I can't speak to,
I'd hate for somebody to say, you want to issue a bond for something that's not on this list, so in fact, you're in violation of the charter. Our whole purpose there is to make it more user-friendly for the structure, whether it be the council and the city manager. And this is just another example of somebody basically putting walls up that really don't need to be there. That's my opinion.
I agree, and to move the conversation along, I do have a motion that I've prepared that would simplify that.
Oh. You want to?
Sure, do you want to jump right into number 2? That's what it affects, 10.2.
Okay, well, I think 10.1, if anyone have any reason to change that? If not, we'll go ahead and take up 10.2.
So as we were just discussing, and we've been doing throughout the charter, trying to make it a little cleaner, I'd like to make a motion that we make the following changes to 10.2, and that would be to start with, in the first sentence, it says some of, would eliminate some of and start with the purposes, and then would go down to the end of that, near the end of that sentence, which is shall be, and then I would add generally, but not limited to, and I think these few things cover all of this: infrastructure, facilities, equipment, services, land, and then pick up down near the end of that paragraph, and other public improvements.
Make it much more broad.
Much more broad.
Concise.
No reason to limit every single thing. I totally agree. Yes.
Yeah,
I'd second that.
I think that's good. Lindsay, can you?
You mean
Mock it up, yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll take a
I was following
short
along,
break
and
for you to
then
do that.
lost-
yeah, I can read.
you kind of lost me too.
I can-
We need a little help.
Yep.
Okay, so.
Okay,
some
where
of
you- where you at?
purposes, and then you're down to credits or securities, comma,
Yes.
shall be generally.
Generally, but not limited to. And that's where we would have a colon,
Okay,
infrastructure, comma, facilities, comma, equipment, comma, services, comma, land, and then we pick up down at the bottom, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th line down there, other public improvements. Other public improvement, I guess I should say. See it there? Yep.
is that,
Yes. And then the only other change that would go along with that then would be the next sentence. Instead of saying the the foregoing enumeration, I would have simply changed that word to description.
So what?
From enumeration to description. Since we're not enumerating.
Mr. Cover, do you think that,
Yeah,
that suffices? Okay, Mr. Walker?
No.
Okay. All right, that sounds
So
good.
this replaced the entire Article 10?
Just 10.2.
Right? Yeah, because I think there are other provisions in this article are good.
Yeah, I think that that is a good change. When I read through it, I noticed some really outdated
Right?
descriptions.
Like telegraph systems.
Yeah, and orphan homes and workhouses.
Oh, workhouses, okay.
Do we have okay, so you've made the motion to make that change. Is there a second?
I gave it.
Yeah,
Okay, I
Mark
have
did
a
it.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. All right, 10.3.
Jeremy,
Is 10.3 the same as?
is that
what you did
redundant?
on
Yeah.
10.8?
10.3 and 10.8?
Yeah, is it basically laying out that we will follow whatever the state says? I don't know why that isn't a given.
Well, 10A
I mean,
is-
again,
sorry.
10.8 technically just addresses indebtedness to the state and federal governments. I mean, again, we can, as opposed to 10.3, which is more, applies to approval of any bond issues.
It just seems redundant in that it says you can follow state law and the Constitution.
Right, which obviously we're required to do anyway. So, I mean, honestly, I don't know that at least, really, I don't know that, I think 10.3 and at a minimum 10.8, as I'm reading the rest of these, could be eliminated, and instead there could be if you wanted to be a section that says, the state shall, or the city shall follow all applicable laws, rules, and regulations related to, indebtedness, bonds, and notes, or something to that effect. If you feel, I mean, again, it's a given, but, if that, it's up to you all.
If we don't follow the state, don't we get sued?
Either we get sued, or our, credit rating goes in the tank, and we can't
Right.
do anything, and we can't issue.
I don't know that the charter needs to tell us that.
I mean, it's not, the charter saying it isn't necessarily, I mean, it's not like, oh, well, if the charter doesn't say it, then we're gonna just do whatever we want.
I don't really know of any bond underwriter that's going to issue debt if you're trying to do it illegally.
Right.
And on a related note, they're also not going to look at the city charter because, again, that's not a document that they're, that they really care about. So, I mean, for that, if that's, again, your preference, it could be consolidated or eliminated, I think, depending on what you all want to do.
Well, if they sue the city, who represents the city?
If they sue the city, yeah,
You?
that's us, yes.
Bring it on, we're good.
Thank you for noticing.
I do say to trim it down first.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of just having one statement like you gave us. And I don't know if we want to make it 10.3 or 10.8. Or at the end or in the middle.
Jeremy, does 10.1 already say that? In your opinion?
Sure does.
Well, it does, yeah.
I mean, essentially, yes. It says it may, incur indebtedness and issue its bonds for any purpose authorized by this charter, or which may be now or hereafter authorized by the state constitution or law for any municipality in the state. So this is saying if it has the authority. If you wanted to say, we could add a line to that says, and in compliance thereof, or something like that. I mean, if you thought that was necessary, but yeah, I would say fundamentally we're probably covered by 10.1.
Any thoughts on that?
So there's no reason to specifically say what 10.8 says, which is indebtedness to federal or state agencies. We don't need, because that's spelled out in the state constitution anyway.
I don't see any reason that needs to be separated out.
Okay.
Mr. Walker?
It's not in the model.
Right.
I don't either. And I know I apologize, Madam Chair, I'm jumping ahead just a little, but kind of to Commissioner McDonald's point a minute ago, when you look at 10.4, section 10.4, and it says, you have to retire this debt within 20 years from the time you issue it. That is currently state law, but what if for some reason the General Assembly decided to extend that to 25 or 30 years?
Right.
And then we
Yeah.
were hamstrung, we wouldn't be able to spread out payment and have a lower annual debt service amount because our charter says we have to do it in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my questions I was going to ask about, that 20 years.
Is that some place where we try to move it over to the ordinance side?
I would say that would be my recommendation would be that'd be the maximum I would do. I just feel if something is already spelled out in state law,
Uh-huh.
why are we being duplicative?
I agree.
Mhm.
Okay.
So do we need a motion to eliminate 10.3
And 10.4.
And 10.4?
and 10.4 and 10.8?
Yes.
I make that motion.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All in favor of that, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Is that less?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, do you need me to sing
I
or
thought it was
anything? or you
God.
go?
Telling us to make an arc.
An ARC, not an ARK.
Okay. 10.5, debt statement.
I guess my question is, have we ever done that?
On an annual basis, as part of the city's annual comprehensive financial report, all of the debt service is aggregated and reported on in that document. So all of the business activity type debt, debt we issue for the utilities, capital purchases like equipment, leases, things of that nature, and then all of the governmental debt, so the TIF projects and things of that nature. All debt is listed in that report each and every year and audited by the city's third-party auditor.
Well, this is, and maybe I'm just reading it wrong, it's saying before any election to get more debt, that we're supposed to be doing that out submitted to all the voters?
I read that the same way you do. We've just not, in my tenure as city manager, we have not sought an election where we're seeking to issue debt. So this is not, But as many of you probably track, the council is having conversations about potentially looking at a general obligation bond, somewhere in the future. So I know, like I said, in talking to our finance team, these things work for us, but my thought would be we are already publishing this information on an annual basis in our annual report, and this would not be new information. We would go and grab what's in that last annual financial report.
So would you be recommending that we change this language to an annual reporting versus?
We are already required to produce that annual financial report. I don't remember the authority of where that's required.
It's a constitutional requirement, yeah,
thing. Okay.
for all Missouri municipalities, that there has to be an annual report and budget have to be an annual report has to be submitted to the state, budget has to be prepared. Those are all constitutional requirements for all cities. So again, having it in the charter is redundant to state law. And actually, the more I've kind of been thinking about this, as what Mr. Walker just said, given that the council actually is considering a general obligation bond, what I wouldn't want is, while this, they're not going to care if this is, if the language is the same as the state. I mean, that's one thing. But as I'm thinking about it, what I would potentially be concerned about is if there's something in here that underwriters looked at that said, hey, you've put this additional, reporting or bureaucratic burden on yourself, and because of that, we're going to make you jump through these hoops, or this is going to cost you more, or something like that. And again, it's not something we've experienced because it isn't a path we've gone down previously, at least in, as Mr. Walker said, at least not in the last, at least we know in the last decade anyway, that much I know.
Correct.
But, as I'm thinking about it more, if it's not necessary, it may be reasonable to, if not remove it, sort of, again, make it as summarized as possible, so that we don't just kind of have this additional language out there that may cause problems down the road.
I guess my question, I'm reading 10.5 multiple times, and I'm having trouble with how do you, what method would we be able to make this 6-part report to all the qualified voters? Are you going to send them a notice, a letter?
Well, Mark, according to this, you have to put it in the newspaper. Now, that's one thing that I recommend that we change,
Yeah.
but that's the way that this reads right now. The last paragraph says that this has to be published in a general circulation newspaper. Personally, I don't think there's anything very burdensome here. I think those 6 items are pretty standard. It's basically giving the public all the information that they need in order to make a decision about more debt for the city.
One consideration on that note is, as we just pointed out, it says publish in a newspaper of general circulation within the city. That has been an issue for other cities that, unfortunately, as the newspaper business has changed. So if nothing else, again, this is something where if it's just an ordinance, it's easy to change. Obviously, not so with the charter. So that might, if you're inclined to leave everything, might at least consider, amending that language on the newspaper to allow for some other option. Because again, that's a spot where if we don't have that and the charter says we have to do it that way, is that going to cause a problem? Yes.
At first I was thinking we could just take out, the newspaper thing and just put something like as required by state law. But I don't know that the state law keeps up with the changing of, you know, media. I don't know.
Is anything,
I know surrounding communities around us, Lee Summit, Blue Springs, I'm sure they've all issued bonds. Do they have this kind of language in their charter that when you did the review there?
I did not see any. I did not look at their codes of ordinance, though.
I haven't seen similar language in the other charters that I've looked at, no.
You are correct that the other surrounding municipalities have some, varying degrees, but all of them have geo debt. And I'm not familiar with this language, again, because it's governed by state statute and state constitution.
This financial report publication is covered by state law,
we did something earlier.
statute?
Didn't we do something earlier about making it available as needed? Public records.
That was something else, but I don't,
The budget. Or something like voting stuff, right? Results maybe? Like as the council sees fit or if somebody. No. We did.
Lindsay thinks that was maybe in the city clerk section.
Yeah, I think we were trying to get away
I
from
don't
having
remember
paper
exactly.
copies,
Yes.
requiring paper copies, but the whole publishing in whatever the legal language is, like Mr. Cover said, that's getting more difficult to find a qualified newspaper to publish in. We still have one in Independence right now.
And we hope it stays that,
Yes, we
and we
do.
hope it stays that way. But again, these are long-term, potentially long-term changes that you're talking about,
Right.
and nobody, knows exactly what the future's gonna look like, so.
Well, I guess my question would be, and although I hate to have to come back to this, if we could find out what the state law requires
Sure.
on this report.
Yeah, we can check on that.
Okay.
So did we do something?
I'm looking at the Lee Summit Charter around public records, and it says copies of budget capital program, I know we don't have one, as adopted shall be public records and shall be made available to public at suitable places in the city, printed form or electronic format. And then it goes on and says, in one or more newspapers of general circulation in the city or otherwise provided by law, a summary accounting, blah, blah.
Yeah, and that, that's the same issue, that those are becoming rare.
I don't know if that sale of bonds little blurb there is applicable or not either. It is very brief if it is.
Okay, so Lee Summit does have one sentence, two sentence section on sale of bonds.
We 10-7.
I can read it if it's of interest. The city shall be authorized to sell any bonds as may now or hereafter be authorized by law, except as otherwise required by law or this charter. All bonds issued by the city shall be sold as prescribed by ordinance.
Well, again, we don't know without looking what they have in their code of ordinances, or if they have anything.
Right, because that one
Yeah.
went towards the purple. Here's the official.
Mhm. Should we come back to this? Maybe get a little
I mean, yeah, we can definitely
information?
check on the state requirements if
Okay.
that makes a difference, and yeah,
Just
that's.
What do you think? Do you wanna?
For the the 10-7
On,
area?
yeah, on 10-5.
Well, this evidently is a new territory. We've never issued a geo bond in years, so.
Correct.
Could we just do something that is very general?
Yeah, that statement shall be approved by the city council and published, period.
Well, you could say published or made available in a format most suitable for widespread distribution, something that would keep up with time changes, because they are going to change again,
Unless there's some requirement under
right?
Missouri law
Right.
on publishing it. Okay, let's come back to at least 10.5.
Okay.
Mr. Cover, if you don't mind just checking, and I'll do a check also
Yeah,
of the statutes on that.
we can check on that.
Okay, 10.6, bond anticipation notes.
I just don't understand the purpose of it.
I mean, this is where
I'm
you
not that
borrow
bright.
money. I don't
14
really-
months.
If, again, we haven't had an opportunity to leverage this tool in any recent memory, if ever. But let's say the voters have approved a general obligation bond at an April election, and the interest rates are really advantageous right now, but maybe the market looks like it's somewhat volatile. What this is allowing you to do is issue those bond anticipation notes saying, I'm going out to the market, I'm going to be, issuing the debt, finding somebody to buy my debt, essentially. But you're not there yet, but you want to start acting. This gives you the cash to start your projects if you thought that was financially advantageous to do so. Gives you a running head start.
Like a bridge or a
Yeah.
builder's loan.
Right, correct.
Seed money.
Hmm.
After it's been approved by the,
After it's been approved.
that makes sense. But before it's actually been issued.
But before it's been issued.
Okay.
Right.
So we have a middleman or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's a process, and I think it even talks about this in a minute, but you have to, competitively seek somebody to buy your debt and find out who's going to give you the best rate and all of those factors, and find out if it's an advantageous time to be in the marketplace. And that takes a little bit of time to play out. So this allows you to take advantage and leverage, favorable construction climate, good bids, good interest rates, whatever it may be, in anticipation of the city actually issuing that debt.
Does anyone want to make changes to 10.6?
Think that 14 days is good, Mr. Walker? I mean, on that?
14 months.
Yeah, the 14 months.
14 months.
Yeah, I think that's a really reasonable window.
Big difference.
14 days would probably be a little tight.
Okay, then if there's no change on that, let's go to 10.7, sale of bonds and notes. That's what the lease summit.
I see that as more of an internal process. It's already been approved, and all we're doing is, what the finance manager needs to be doing is evaluating all the proposals and then saying yay or nay. I mean, we've already obligated ourselves for the month. I don't understand how it would be different.
Well, I guess the question is this something that we feel needs to be in the charter? And we see that, as an example, Lee Summit has a simpler version of this in their charter. Did you find it in Blue Springs also?
It seemed to be aligned with staff, like there's almost like a bond that the staff employee has to come up with, so I didn't find exactly.
Okay.
But I do think it needs to be.
And again, this isn't in our code of ordinances, right?
It's not something that I recall seeing. We can check real quick. I know that I feel like generally I've seen this before, and I'm not sure I could put my finger on it right now, that, some cities may have this more of as a policy that they adopt along with, that
Yes.
when they, and in fact, may even be required as part of the underwriting. And so I know I've seen it before in that context. I can't, I haven't seen it in other charters that I can recall, and I can't say that it's in the city code, but I'm checking real quick.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen this language before too. It may just be language that the bond council uses.
Exactly.
Maybe, now that I look at it, it may be to protect the city from bond issuers. That if, it says that a city may repeatedly reject any and all bids and re-advertise such bonds. It's basically saying it's ours till we decide that we're gonna sign a contract.
Yeah, I think it's also, again, if you think about some of the origins of some of this language, it contemplates sort of self-dealing and other things that are at minimum frowned upon, if not illegal. And so that may be again that somewhere this is coming from, to make it clear that it wouldn't allow for kind of a less than arm's length transaction that's somebody knows somebody and they came in and got a good deal, was able to buy up this debt and something like that. So I mean that may be, but again, there's a number of other regulations, not to mention any sort of underwriting requirements that are going to apply to any transaction that's contemplated here. So I mean that's again at some point in time maybe that was less likely to happen, but I don't see how that would happen today regardless of this language.
I think when this charter was last addressed, right, the financial options were greatly less than they are now. Commerce and Northern, that's
I have a concern looking forward in time on this, is that if we recommend striking this, and it goes to the voters, we would need a really good explanation for why we're taking away this safeguard. And if it's duplicated someplace else within the city, or if it's a state law, I think that would give support for that.
I
Or
agree,
if we
Jackie.
get the perception that we're trying to just open the door.
Right.
I understand that
And
totally.
we're not, so.
It's worth keeping it in there just to protect the perception.
especially if it's
Yes.
staying the same.
Yes.
Exactly. Any other thoughts on that? Are we okay with leaving it in?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
What about the line about newspaper? Lou?
Something that Lindsay had mentioned, this Lindsay to my right had mentioned, that she'd seen other places was it just said, shall be published in what she has seen language of, published in a newspaper of general circulation and not had it within the city. I know I've also seen language that, again, it's still a newspaper, so it's up to, we can check and see what the state requirements are. But I know I've also seen language that says, publish in a newspaper, within X number of miles of the city or something like that. I know I've seen that language somewhere just to give a little bit more flexibility
Right.
than saying a newspaper, within the city. Again, Independence is lucky to have that, and we hope
Right.
that stays. But it's unfortunately that it's been a rough road for newspapers, as we all know.
Well, I think that's a good idea to take out the local newspaper requirement, leave in the publishing in a newspaper.
I hate to say it though, because, my background's in printing and journalism, but there's even some trickiness in saying general circulation, because those numbers are
There,
dwindling.
it is. There are there used to be more than one legal publication in this area, but I don't even know how many there are now.
That's still like published, period.
You could say published as required by law.
Or you got published as seen fit by the council, or as needed. What do you think, Lindsay, on the left?
Whatever you.
I just wanted to use that.
We have Lindsay on the left, Lindsay on the right. Are you? Okay. Yeah, I think if it's okay with you all, if you aren't sure what you want to do, then we can check on, what the state requirements are, and let you know that. So at least we've got a little, something to consider before.
That's not the only thing we're going back to, so that one might.
That is true.
I think that's best.
Yeah. Okay, we'll come back to that publication requirement.
That was the only thing in 10, correct? That we came back to?
In 10.7, or in 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, we decided to leave 10.7, except a look back on that publication requirement.
Okay,
And then we struck 10.8,
correct.
correct?
You guys are going back to 10.5 too, so 10.5 and 10.7.
Okay. Okay. Anything else in Article 10?
Well, I've got a question.
Okay.
Did we move on to the next one yet? 10? Are we still on,
We're-
I was wondering, would it be appropriate, we've got one article that's listed as budget. Why isn't it like in the model? I think it's classified as financial management, that we include what you just discussed in 10 and move that into 8, at the end of 8, or just a different subtitle
That's in the model,
from the model.
from the model.
Yeah. Instead of tying up a whole article that's directly ties into finance,
Are you saying sort of make a new titled article that
Yes.
is,
change the article to
Budget bond.
financial management, and then you would have a heading of budget. or subheading. And then you would have another subheading, whatever the heck it's called, indebtedness, bonds, and notes.
On that thought process, that title would go lend towards your thought process of management of the budget account funds, like we talked about last time, with the different comparable statements, as opposed to just budget. So I like it for the movement that we're kind of talking about, financial management versus just a budget.
Okay.
So what you're recommending is a change in the title, so you want to move this to 8? And
Yeah.
change the title of 8?
I'm just stealing the financial management from the model. It can be,
Okay.
you can call it whatever the heck we want to call it, but,
I think that's good.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's a great idea.
And then a subtitle for budget would still be in there. And then another subtitle for indebtedness, bonds, and notes. And I don't know if that messes up anything with the codes or however that's all tied together. But I think for consistency, that would be the appropriate thing to do. Because when I went through this trying to find it in the model, I was searching all the different things and couldn't find it.
I think that's a great idea. Makes sense, logically. Did you get that, Lindsay, what he was recommending?
What is it? Put 10 to the two articles, or the sections we went over in 10 in 8, under the wording of 8.
Just
Change
include,
the article from budget to financial management, the subtitles of budget, and then indebtedness.
Thank you, Lindsay, on that.
Much better than I did. Thank you.
do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I would. Lindsay, you want to make that motion? No, change the title. I move that we change the title on Article 8 to Financial Management and make the title of Budget a subtitle in Article 8 and move, wherever the heck it is, the provisions that we've come up with in Article 10 as a subtitle under Article 8. Is that clear?
I think so.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second,
Any further discussion?
just one. I don't know that you need the subtitles.
We just put 8, section 8, 1.
Ti- 10,
You
10-1 now becomes 8-12, and so on and so on. There's no other place in the charter that we have any subtitles.
8.1, that's what I was going to say, 8.12 and then 8.13.
Yeah.
From the 10.
But you would need to alter your motion.
Are you okay with that?
So I need to alter my motion.
No, I'm just
I don't like
asking you, are you
doing
okay
the
with?
motion, so I'm really gonna like making a change.
When you
So
say-
take out the subtitle, and of course we'd have to renumber them, right?
Yeah,
Just add on the back. That way we don't go in the middle.
yeah, there's going to be a lot of renumbering,
Okay.
but we would,
So get rid of the budget subtitle and indebtedness, bonds, and note subtitle? Is that what the board is?
Yeah, because each paragraph has a title
Okay,
that explains exactly what it refers to.
okay.
I'll go with that.
Okay, we'll consider that motion amended.
Okay.
That doesn't,
Mr. Carver, did you have a comment?
No, I was just trying to I understand what the I was trying to make sense of the, I guess, discrepancy between what you all were saying. And I guess it's just within, you're saying within, for Article 8, if I'm understanding it, you're saying leave it as just budget instead of adding budget, no?
no, change it
Okay,
to
I'm still
financial
confused.
management, but don't separate it into two sections, budget, and then
I see.
indebtedness.
Okay, I'm
The
following
budget
you.
and
I'm
then
trying to get
Yeah.
all the finance
Okay,
into
thank
one
you.
area.
Because we haven't done that in any other articles.
Got it. Okay, I'm following you now. We're good. Thank you.
Okay.
As
And
long
you're
as
excited
they've
about
got
it too, I can tell.
Lindsay's
That's
like
important.
growling. That's a lot of work. Okay. Okay. All right, so second to that motion.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, next article is 11. I am going to recuse myself from Article 11, except I want to come back in for, tell you, 11.5 and 11.6, and then I will leave the room again. So if someone could come and get me, I do have a conflict of interest.
Do we have an article like this in the model charter? To compare and contrast?
I couldn't find it.
You couldn't?
I could not.
So are these so far, can we do those now and then the rest will rest? Jackie? Are those so far outlined, can we do those first, those two sections? Or should we run it?
I don't mind coming back in.
Okay, I just was gonna say, we can do it while you're here and then do 11, but.
Okay, so we're going to discuss Article 11. We'll dive right into 11.1. Or maybe in general, I should ask city staff, Zach or Jeremy, are there any recommendations here from your area?
We had two recommendations from a staff perspective. I apologize, they're a little further into the document, but just
Okay.
for the commission's awareness as you come along. 11.16 and 11.17. Those two sections speak to weeds, dilapidated buildings, abatements, as well as special assessments to be liens. Staff recommended deleting those sections because they are already addressed in city code. So this is another redundancy of city code.
Was there redundancy in any other aspects of this?
No, those were the only two that we found the redundancy with code specifically.
That was, what's 11, 16, and 17?
16 and 17, yes, sir.
I think 11, 19 is also, that's also in the code. It's section, because I looked at that at one point. Section, Article 20 in the city code. It's section 20.20.001. I think it's verbatim. It says, all proceedings for the condemnation of property or in the exercise of the right of eminent domain shall be in accordance with RISMO 88.010 to 88.130, which are the condemnation sections, and any other general provisions of state law relating thereto. So it's not, it's not verbatim, but I would say it's definitely redundant.
Okay. Okay, got those three marked. Okay, let's go back to 11.1. Any concerns, recommended changes in 11.1?
Isn't this already done in the bidding process, kind of? I mean, with this 11.1, when they bid items out?
We need, I think we need Mr. Waters' special skills of categorizing
You know,
these issues.
I looked at that, Mark, and I almost feel like this is one that it needs all this spelled out. I could be wrong, but it feels like
I
that,
can understand that.
yeah.
I don't appreciate it.
I
do
know,
understand it.
I know. And I, certainly welcome other opinions or any changes. Nothing on 11.1? Okay. Moving on. 11.2, public improvements, how cost to be paid. I didn't see anything in there that was an issue or conflicting anything from,
I guess what's the value? What's the value of having section 11.2? How else were you gonna pay for it?
A wish and a dream?
Yeah, I mean, I think so much of this charter is trying to get down to the nitty gritty on how to run the city more than allowing the city manager and the council to run the city.
I mean, if the question is it problematic, I would say the answer is no. If the question is it necessary? I would say the answer is no. But again, that doesn't mean, but you know, it's not problematic. So if you want to leave it in there, that's your call.
I go back to what is the value?
the only thing that I was concerned about, and Mark, you probably have more experience about this, and that is any special assessments. Because it does address that here and then on down. Are those things that need to be clearly specified?
What's a special assessment? Where you assess every homeowner a certain amount of money? I don't know that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. If you, again, we can use the general obligation bond as the example. There's the general tax levy, which the council set last night for general municipal service
Right.
operations. But another levy might be a general obligation bond. So depending on how much the council were to propose and the citizens approve, then that would be a levy amount assessed to all the properties here in Independence that pay real property tax. So that's,
Same way as a sewer district.
yep,
Goes in.
absolutely.
We done that in Sugar Creek, that everybody on the river was assessed a special amount of money since sewers were put in. So that was a special assessment.
To expire. Once that.
Yeah, once it's paid off, correct.
But it could affect certain property owners, like in that case,
Yeah.
right?
Well, we had that with our sewer in Independence too. Like $12 a month. Forever.
That's issue to the job then, isn't it? Is that what we're saying here, that this is probably redundant because it's being done anyway and not?
Well, that $12, maybe I'm wrong, that $12 you're talking about is something totally different than a special assessment from a sewer district going in to benefit houses in an area.
Yeah.
So I think it's sort of two different things. So 11.2 is just listing all the ways the public improvements can be paid, and it's saying one of those ways is special assessments, which are special assessments are further addressed down in the article in terms of it, that then 11.4 is procedure for initiating special assessment projects. So I mean it's to eliminate this section doesn't mean you eliminate the ability to do special assessments. It's just eliminating sort of the these are the things you can use to pay for it. But again, this isn't the first time that we've had what seems like obvious information. That's my legal opinion, and so it's not wrong, it's not harmful, it's just it's up to you all if you like it or you don't.
Am I hearing a motion?
To remove it,
Yes,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
okay. Further discussion? The motion was made to remove section 11.2 completely. I guess that's going to be a vote yes, huh?
Yeah.
No further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. We have stricken that section. How about 11.3, revolving improvement fund? City manager, Mr. City Manager, does that exist?
It does. Now, it's not always funded, but there's such a thing.
It creates it. It didn't say it. Funds
Yeah,
it.
that's right.
But no recommendations to make any changes here?
You know, I might ask Mr. McDonald's last question. I struggled to see the benefit in this because, as we saw earlier in the charter, the council has the ability to create different funds. So this kind of seems redundant with that, but also its existence isn't hampering anything.
So it wouldn't hamper to leave it, because if it was created, or you came across some times where you could use that, there's no, to take it out,
Yeah, it's not.
might as well have it there in case you get to use it in some good times. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we did remove the prior histories out of
We did,
them, didn't we, the last go round?
yes. No recommendation for changes to 11.3. Moving on, 11.4, procedure for initiating special assessment projects. When I read this, it is quite lengthy, but it seems like necessary steps and information for special assessment projects. I didn't see anything. Anyone else?
No, is that what you follow, just like that?
It is, correct.
And can you live with it?
Yeah, it's not hampering us in any way right now that I've not come across a time where this was prohibitive.
Okay, Jackie wanted to begin for 11.5 and 6.
So we're good before, correct, Tom?
Yes. Yeah, I hear no motions, so we're moving on.
So we're already on 12.
We're already on section 14.
Oh, yeah, sure, okay. All right, so section 11.5, plans and specifications. Comments? Again, nothing from city staff, go ahead. sir.
I didn't have anything on
Okay.
on that.
All right, moving right along, 11.6, public improvements to be made by contract or by the city government, awarding contracts. The only thing I wondered about that section is whether these dollar amounts are still
Yeah.
realistic numbers.
I had that concern too, and also I didn't know if this was more, this particular paragraph is more of should be in the code or maybe a purchasing policy.
It is in the city's procurement policy. I can't say, which I happen to actually have pulled up right now. Give me 1 second.
But the amounts looked so low to me, it just didn't seem, like it required a lot more bidding than I think is normal.
is already in the code.
Fundamentally, yes. I'm sorry, not in the code. It's in the procurement policy, which is approved by the council, but is technically a standalone document, as far as I know. Mr. Walker, is that correct?
It's been approved by council resolution, so it's not codified. It's a policy.
Right. And are those dollar amounts different?
I am checking to see. They seem abnormally low.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking. I would say that they're different. Oh, no, I found it. It's in, I was looking at the wrong section. Under the public improvement section of the procurement policy, it has exactly the same language from the charter. I was wrong.
So I can make a motion to redact 11.6.
Is there a second? So your motion is to eliminate all of 11.6?
Yeah.
Any other conversation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to section 11.7, levy and assessment of cost. Any notes for change, concerns there?
I would just state this, we do use this. A good example would be sidewalks. So sidewalks in our city are property owners' responsibility, but a lot of time homeowners could leverage a better value if a contractor came in and worked on a longer block than an individual property. So the city will front the cost of that, use our purchasing power because of our size to get a more favorable bid than an individual might get, and then assess this back to the property owners on their tax bills. So this does have some applicability and use.
On to 11.8.
11.8,
I'll leave that to you. I was like-
yeah, absolutely. 11.8, method of apportioning costs. That seems pretty straightforward to me. Okay. 11.9, invalid or insufficient assessments, reassessment, excessive assessments. No changes here? Okay. 11.10, all property, public or private, liable for special assessments. I didn't see any changes, but I was surprised to see that tax exempt property, and correct me if I'm on, Zach left.
Yes, he did.
That tax exempt properties could be liable for special tax assessment.
Yeah,
Is that
because
correct?
it's a different, correct, because it's a
Okay.
difference between tax exempt is, essentially just what, the taxing jurisdictions are charging in order to fund the revenue, as opposed to a special assessment, which is designed to, have
Direct benefit.
a direct benefit to those property owners. And you're getting that, a property owner, whether, whoever it was, even if they're tax exempt, are still getting that benefit. And so, you can see a scenario where, maybe to not do that, you could say, well, the city could bring this issue to try to, who's also a property owner, and force on everyone else, but hey, we're tax exempt, we don't have to pay. which, you know, wouldn't be well received. So yeah, that's, it does come up, especially, you know, like, you know, here where it's always possible that you know, it is, you know, city-owned or other tax-exempt entity owns property, so it's definitely something that comes up.
Okay. Okay. 11.11, special tax bills, registration, et cetera. Is this something is necessary, or is this also a following state statute procedures?
It's following state statute and it's in the city code.
Okay,
It's in, Article 15 of the city code, walks through special tax bills, so. The question is it necessary? In the charter, I would say no.
I'll make a motion to strike section 1111.
any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. 11.12, special tax bills, payment.
This one also in the,
I'm sorry, I'm nodding. Yes, sir. This is also addressed in the city code. It's depending, Article 15 and Article 20, depending on exactly, there's a few that addresses special tax bills in a few different ways. But yeah, all of this about is in there already.
Motion to delete 11.12.
Do I have a second?
sorry,
Further discussion? We're deleting right and left. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Passes. 11.13, sewers, classes, where located, and connections. This seems like important information. Not sure it belongs in the charter. Would our public works department say anything different?
I don't think the charter I agree with you. I don't know that this is the appropriate place for this.
Would there be any situations where we're working with other jurisdictions that this would come into play as necessary to point to the charter?
I mean, my answer is going to be no, because again, it's not. First of all, other jurisdictions aren't required, obviously, to follow our charter.
Right.
And you know, in terms of backing up some position, it wouldn't make any difference if it was, you know, in that scenario, if it was in the charter or in the code. I'm looking, I think. I'm sorry. I'm sort of skimming. Some of this I think I'm in Article 7 Article 6 sewer use regulations of the code, and generally this seems to be addressed there also.
Okay.
And it would also seem more appropriate to be addressed in the code than in the charter.
Do I hear a motion
I'll make a motion,
to delete 11.13?
yes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Was that a second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. 11.14 is private sewers acquisition. Treat this section any differently?
Give us gift to the sewer too.
Appreciate that, yeah. Yeah, I know, how thoughtful. I'm having a hard time seeing the value in this.
I would agree.
Okay.
Motion to delete 11.14.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Passes. And then we get to 11.15, sidewalks. I know this can be somewhat controversial. Think it's good to leave it? I know we addressed it in previous section, levy and assessment of cost, but
I would think this is in Public Works also, in their codes.
And
He's-
it's not our newspaper problem
Oh.
in the middle.
oh, yeah. He said that it's like these others, that it probably should be addressed in Public Works. But I know that,
Yeah, I think
Go
the
ahead.
Public Works manual that council updated that last night would handle this provision.
I would agree. Yeah, I mean, I think to Mr. Waters' point, this can be a controversial issue. Again, but I don't think it seems like having it in the charter is a little misplaced. I think it's definitely something that needs to be and is addressed separately by the council and in other documents, but it seems a little out of place to be addressed
okay,
in the charter.
Motion to delete 11.15.
is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion on that? All in favor of deleting 11.15, say yes?
Yes.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
or aye? Thank you. Any opposed? Passes, thank you. Okay, 11.16, weeds and dilapidated buildings, et cetera. We've already heard from Mr. Walker about this, that it is covered under the code. Is there any other discussion? I'd like to entertain a motion then.
Make a motion to remove 11.16.
Thank you. Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. 11.17, special assessments.
Motion to delete.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay. Okay, 11.18, council may further regulate. I see a lot of language you've already covered, but
Jeremy, doesn't that just say council can do their job?
That's exactly what it
is
says.
that what it's saying?
Yeah.
That's what I hear. Any reason to leave it?
Leave it or delete it?
Yeah, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor of deleting 11.18, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Jackie's gonna really have to catch up to get my deletion ratio here.
That's right. Like a knife through butter.
We're just gonna push,
Speaking
just
of-
push through.
Speaking of 11.19, condemnation proceedings. We've heard a recommendation of deleting this as it's already found in city code.
So moved.
So moved, thank you. Any second?
Second.
Further
Second.
discussion? All in favor of deleting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right. And 11.20, inclusion of real property in city, in drainage, or levy districts.
It's certainly addressed in state law. I can't say it's necessarily addressed in the code, but state law allows for this, so I would say it's unnecessary in the charter.
Motion to delete 11.120.
Heard a motion, how about a second?
Second?
Okay, I do want to say that we do live in a city that has a very large drainage district. Is this anything that we should be concerned about here in the charter? Or because is it addressed adequately?
My opinion, but Jeremy back this or challenge, is that because state statute governs this, we've got that guidance and protection for the city.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Again, it's not like several of these sections. It's not wrong. It's not harmful. I don't personally think it's necessary because it's addressed by statute. But in the end, that's your all's call whether or not you want it or not.
Okay. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of deleting 11.20, say aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
After going through that exercise,
What's that?
after going through that exercise, I was kind of thinking, when they put this charter together and it got to this article, it looks like they just took the Public Works manual and put it in the charter.
Right,
I don't understand that.
a lot of information there.
Yeah.
Was.
Jackie, your pizza's ready. Jackie Summers, your pizza is ready.
Okay, and that completes the charter. Thank you guys. We appreciate your time.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13 sections were just deleted, Jackie. So I challenge you to keep up with that record.
Thank you. Okay, so we're done with our review of Articles 10 and 11. Next is other business. Our next meeting is October 5th, Thursday. Is that right? Right. Yeah. So we have a couple of extra days. And again, let's try to just be ready to finish. I don't think we will, but let's be prepared to. Yeah. Anyone else have any other business to discuss?
Motion to adjourn.
When will we get a final copy of what we've done looks like? Because at some point, we're gonna have to go over that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
We gotta sell them.
really, I mean, again, this Lindsay has been, making the revisions as you all have been approving them. So, I mean, really, what I see this as, once you have gone through all of the sections, then at that point, there is probably some initial cleanup that we're going to do to make sure that everything lines up, and then it would you all would still be reviewing it for another meeting or multiple meetings as you kind of go through and sort of read the document all together. It doesn't mean you're going through it section by section again, and that's going to be up to you all. But yeah, I mean, once you complete going through the last article and any other sections we've skipped to come back to, I still anticipate there's going to be some follow-up from you all and eventually then you will approve a final version, and that's what will actually go to the council. After that, it's on the council's timeline in terms of what they do. It's certainly possible, depending on how the council wants to break it up and what their comments are, that some or all of it could even come back to you all for further review, discussion. You're shaking your head no. I mean,
You don't like it? Fix it yourself.
okay, and you can put that in your transmittal message if you want.
I don't think it'd probably be a good
So, you know, at that point, it's on the council's timeline. But yeah, I mean, it's there. Essentially, we'll go right into that sort of final review process as soon as you complete it, because Lindsay's been doing that all along.
Right.
So there's not going to be. It's not like there's now we got to do all of these changes in a different form or anything like that.
I think what we've done is going to be a very good problem.
I agree.
Yeah, so Lindsay's question is, will it show the red line when it goes to council or the clean copy? Because the red line's hard to read. What we'll probably end up doing is giving them both versions, because that way they can see, you know, the advantage of red line is you can see what what you're changing, obviously. The disadvantage is, especially with all of the changes that you all have made, sometimes it gets hard to sort of put it all together. So we would, finish the red line, then do a clean copy, and in my mind, that's what would go to the council for them to start working on this. And again, I anticipate that will probably be a somewhat lengthy process as well.
I'll go through section 11 quickly.
Maybe they'll fly through section 11, who knows? Yeah, and then in the end, it's up to the council, what goes to the voters for approval, in what way it goes to the voters. I mean, I think it's certainly possible that this gets broken up, not just into sections, but possibly even, multiple elections if they wanted to, if they felt like it was too, overwhelming to do all at once. So that's ultimately going to be their decision.
Okay. All right. Well, I did hear that is sort of the method that Blue Springs used. I was a city attorney. I drafted the ballot measures, and it was, compared to this, not very many, but I think we had 8 or 9 actual questions on the ballot. It's difficult to do, and I remember, I think I saw in the resolution where we were appointed that was one of our duties, but hopefully we will have
was
your
it?
assistance.
I haven't looked at that in a while.
I
So
think so.
okay, to actually format it or to give a recommendation or both?
I
I haven't looked at it. We'll look at that as we get closer. Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry,
and
I
I-
hadn't looked at that piece of it.
It might
Yeah.
have expired, isn't that 2 years ago?
You've been re-upped. Anyway, we can look at that. I'll look at the
I mean, it's something we can
the
plan
resolution
at a
again.
later
And
meeting.
obviously, any of it, you can certainly, there's nothing that stops you. I mean, you all can take it as far as you want in terms of what you want your recommendations to be. So if you want to, give them a plan of attack in terms of submitting it, to the voters, that's, certainly up to you all. Like the rest of it, in the end, it's up to the council what actually goes to the voters.
So is it easier to pass in 4 or 5 sections than one?
Oh, yeah.
Is it?
I think so, especially with this many changes. And then there were some that I think we're going to probably pull out separately. I think we discussed one, which I can't remember right now which one that was. But oh,
Yeah,
the
I mean, I
primaries.
think the problem is, and I mean, this is a problem anyway, and especially given the number and the depth of the changes that you all are making. But if someone doesn't like, you could have 500 changes, and if someone doesn't like one of them and they're okay with 499, they're going to vote no
Right.
because they don't like that one change. And so that's the advantage of breaking it up into some sort of, more manageable sections, because you've got a much higher, likelihood of, some things no one's going to care about, right? And so maybe, you get a handful of votes, but they're all yes because nobody cares. And there's going to be, other issues that are probably going to be more contentious. So if you break it up, you don't have those relying on each other, and so you're much, much more likely to get approval on some of them that, are expected that people aren't probably going to have a lot of concern about.
Anything else? I did hear a motion to adjourn.
You did. Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.